Okay, so let's just get Bryce Mitchell out of the way.
Okay.
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 Cuz I watched the podcast. You watched about 10 minutes of it. What were your initial thoughts about it? For those that don't know, it got deleted, right? After it got uploaded, about like 5 or 6 hours after it got uploaded, it's been deleted. Rampage issued like an 18-minute fucking video on Twitter,
Yeah.
kind of addressing it because he's
You
been
know,
getting bashed. So let me know your thoughts because
well, no. What Rampage said was that he wanted to delete it because of all the hate comments in the chat
yeah,
in their
yeah,
comments. And I was like, well, that comes with the territory, though, bro. Like that, it is what it is.
it is what it is in my opinion.
Yeah, that just comes with the territory. Like you got to expect that. Roll out the next episode, and then it just becomes noise.
Mm-hmm.
Like it shouldn't even matter. They probably have so much content that they could just keep releasing that they would just be like whatever at that point. And I thought that, how what did they expect him to say?
Yeah, you can't force somebody to change their opinion just because they're on your podcast, right? Like, obviously, even with the statement Bryce said initially, that wasn't like a super like apologetic statement. It's crossing off your T's, being like, "Look, I'm sorry, I kind of said this publicly, right? But like, I'm not gonna retract my statements, but I apologize for offending people. I shouldn't have said this publicly, you know." But like, they kind of wanted him to change his tune, and I don't think you can force somebody into that just because they're on your podcast.
Yeah,
Just don't have them on. If you don't want to hear that other side and take that risk, then don't have him on. But you kind of pinned him in a corner to only talk on one side of it.
and here's the other thing too. It's like typically when you do a podcast, the person's going to show up like 30 minutes, prior to the recording. Everybody kind of sees each other, meets, hey, we're about to, we're going to do this. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of go over the game plan of what the recording is going to be. Here's some questions we're going to ask, and then we'll kind of get into it. Bryce has to know that they were going to ask. They asked, right?
Yeah. As far as like addressing the controversy,
Right.
yeah, the Rampage
He
kicked it
didn't,
off.
yeah, he didn't just come out like, oh, I need to get this off my chest and explain myself.
No, Rampage kind of said like, "What the fuck were you thinking?"
Right. And so then, I didn't feel like he didn't double down. He didn't do a Sean Strickland.
No, I think he tried to like toe the line. He tried to
Yeah,
like not be super apologetic, but he was just trying to say like, "Look, I'm not like a Hitler supporter. Like it was, wrongly said and things of this nature."
that's what I mean. He didn't double down.
No, yeah.
He could have said like, "No, you know what? No, yeah, I think he was a good guy." But he could have doubled down and fucking just kept running with it, but he didn't go that route. So that's why I was more like, well, either you whatever Bear took it super super offensive.
Well, because Bear, like, you know how I just said that Bryce basically didn't want to like be super apologetic. He just kind of like said like, "Look, let's just kind of move past this. I'm willing to acknowledge fault here." But that wasn't enough for Bear, right? That wasn't enough. And Bear wanted him to be like super like, retracting his statements, apologetic, and that's what I'm saying. That's where things got weird, right? So go on.
Yeah, and I think too, like when you heard Rampage kind of speak out on it, Rampage kind of gave me a little bit more insight who he is. He is a playful guy.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't take things so seriously, whereas Bear takes them more literal and serious to the heart. Where Rampage just kind of jokes around with shit like whatever, dog. You know what I mean? Like even Rampage said was very telling, bro. You know how many stuff I've been through, racist shit. I was raised in the South.
Mm-hmm.
Rampage knows what racism looks like up front, close and personal. I bet growing up in the South, bro, he had to deal with a lot of shit,
Of
but he
course.
let it roll off his back, and he kept growing as a person, and he started realizing it's a big world out there. Not everybody, feels this way or acts this way.
Right.
So, I think that they should have kept it up.
I think they should have kept it up. Um,
It was nothing really out of pocket. That's all I mean. Now the comments may have like gotten to Bear, and that's why. But I don't you that like this isn't gonna be the first time you're gonna have to deal with people in the comments.
no.
Something else is gonna come up.
And kind of to your point, right? It's like, what do you expect, right? Like you're having this guy on controversial at this time. I know that like he meant to have Bryce on earlier, you know, in time,
That, yeah.
right? But you're still choosing to have him on really soon after this controversy. You know
Right.
what you're getting yourself into. Why be
Right.
surprised when it happens? You thought he was
Right.
going to get good comments. He was going to get those hate comments, you know, no matter what way it went because
Yeah.
of how soon it's happened. So for you to be like, that's the reason why, and you didn't realize that was going to happen ahead of time, is kind of like a miss. And regardless, I think they should have kept it up. It is what it is. You know what I mean? You're not going to save Bryce. Everything Bryce posts right now, those same comments that were on that video, he's getting right now. Any Instagram post he makes.
Yeah.
They're going to find him regardless.
And the only other thing I could think of is behind the scene. I don't know what Bear's nationality is.
They're saying he's not Jewish. Because
Yeah,
obviously that's obvious. They're calling him out for that.
It looks like a white dude to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know he's not Mexican. I know he's not black.
He said
I know
he's Christian.
All right. Well, a lot of people are Christian. So people behind the scenes that help fund the podcast, I don't know what their views are. I don't know what their background is. So there could be other layers to this that we don't know.
Well, you know, Rampage said on that video that Bear pays for everything out of pocket. And Bear was born rich. His family owns like a paintball field.
Well, but I mean, he could still have people funding it though, regardless. He paying out of pocket. He still could have silent partners, right? He could,
but Rampage did say that Bear pays for the flights and Bear pays for all this stuff out of pocket.
And listen to this, and he could be trying to line up investors. The podcast is getting to a point where people are looking at it.
I could understand that.
He could be having agreements that like, hey, dude, like this is not a good look for us. Can you take that down? Who knows? Like I said, I'm just speculating. I don't know. I really don't know. So, I mean, but it is down.
Yeah, so I mean, that is a fair point as far as like for his business. I was thinking that as far as like what Bryce says could be a representation. So that's why he was taking it seriously. And I can understand that on Bear's perspective. As far as like getting backlash, I do think that Bear, to some degree, shouldn't be surprised when you get that backlash because you weren't fair to Bryce. You came in there with a narrative to some degree that you wanted to push. And that's fine, but accept what happens when you do that.
They've had worse things happen on the podcast where people were about to fight.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's worse than like this whole Jewish controversy, you know?
Okay, maybe the circumstance was worse. But there, I mean, like what Kevin Holland said was hella out of pocket.
Well, and they capitalized on that. So
Did.
Kevin Holland probably got some like weird hatred in the comments, and they were probably fine with that.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of because it was political. And you can understand that. That's what I'm trying to say too, though. I understand that on Bear's end, but Bear, just like take it for what it is. Like this is my thing too, right? Sometimes with podcasters, they always want to be the good guy. This is my thing with Ariel. He always wants to be the good guy. He always wants to like be innocent and be towing this line. And I think Bear is kind of similar. Bear wants to be this good guy. Even in the podcast, he's saying like positivity. I don't want the negativity. And I respect that. But I'm just saying in this circumstance too, Bear wants to be the good guy. And, you know, when you always want to be on that, you know, you're taking a risk because he's saying like, you know, you shouldn't be saying this stuff. You're wrong for saying it. And there's a lot of people who support Bryce, right? So that's the people who are now coming at Bear. But there's also people coming at Bear because you're the podcaster. Just give him a platform to say something. But again, you're talking about Bryce Mitchell.
Right.
So I can understand that. It's one of those things, you know. I don't think Bear handled it right to the fullest extent, but I can't blame him. That's a tough one to put yourself into.
And then like I was telling you too, before we started recording, he was going behind the scenes to asking accounts, can they take it down? Like, can they take down the actual episode? And he could give people strikes. Honestly, he could go and give people YouTube strikes because it's content that was owned by them. What he did, I don't know what the results were with that. But for whatever reason, bro, he's
not happy with that. Yeah.
He seriously wanted it. And it seems so like it was nothing. Like, that's what I expected. Okay, what's next? Like, I didn't seem, what word do I want to use? Like, offended.
So
I wasn't more offended than what he said before.
Yeah, and so to what I'm kind of saying, to what you're kind of saying, do you think that he took it down because of stuff about that podcast regarding him to some degree? The backlash he might be getting? And they're kind of saying, like, the Bryce Mitchell thing. as like a cover up to the real reason?
There has to be a cover up here because what they're putting out there, the comments just doesn't make sense. Like you're in the entertainment industry. Like it's gonna come with the territory. But that's an easy way to just be like, oh, just, you know, if you do say something, just say we took it down because of the comments. It has to be like a cover up, I guess you could say.
I feel like it might be like that's the excuse, but the real reason could easily be that Bear doesn't like how he came off in that and how the fans are responding to him.
But my thing too is you could have edited it any way you wanted it to. You could have just took that whole piece out.
But it's like you expressed how you feel, Bear. So stand on it. That's my thing. Stand on it. Whether people agree with you or not, right? Stand on it. That's how you felt. Just because you get this public narrative that people don't agree with you, now you're like, uh-oh. And this is all a speculation, right?
Yeah.
Their excuse could be the real reason. But to our speculation, I feel like stand on your shit. If you did take it down because you don't like how people are responding to how you truly felt about something, I think that's a little bit weak.
Well, what's crazy to me is, bro, like they literally probably they have to have content they're sitting on. They have to. They just recorded so much content that they could have just rolled out another podcast and moved right past it.
But they rushed this one out too. I bet you this was recently recorded, right? It had to be recently recorded. And there's other ones that have been previously recorded that didn't go out first.
And you know what? And I don't remember what I said last time about Bryce Mitchell, but I'll say it again. And I think this is why Rampage felt the same way. After watching it and seeing his reaction, Rampage is like, bro, this dude's an idiot. He don't know no better. That's where he grew up at. He has those feelings because all the other fools in that fucking part of the country and shit fucking have some type of racism bone in them, and they just don't think the same. So like whatever, bro. Like it's almost like what we said. Oh, I remember what you said. We said it's like when you have that one stupid homie that keeps bringing up conspiracy theories. Like, all right, dog.
Yeah.
Right. That's him.
That's
you know
Bryce.
what I mean? So Rampage is like whatever, bro. Like whatever, dude. Like be dumb over there.
Right. Two other things I wanted to mention about it is that as far as Rampage goes, because we're kind of like picking apart Bear. And I good on Rampage as far as being a friend. He's, I think, putting himself into the narrative. I think nobody's really talking shit on Rampage. Although he is saying he's getting racist comments, and I don't not believe him on that end. But I think, in my personal opinion, Rampage was pretty cool to Bryce. Even though, and he even said, like, I didn't even want to be as harsh as I was, but Bear told me to. So I think Rampage was pretty cool. I kind of respected how Rampage handled it. You're not going to tell this guy how to live his life, but you can actually, do good by having a understandable conversation. You're not going to see eye to eye with Bryce, but if you can make Bryce feel like he's understood by you, he might be more open to now getting feedback from you, right? But when you're getting kind of shunned like Bear was doing, I don't think Bryce is going to get very much feedback. In fact, I watched it, and Bryce started fighting back. Bryce was like, "Oh, you think this? Like, you think that like Jesus wasn't real? Like, and you think that, and you think this? Like, this is what I got to tell you, right?" But he didn't come at Rampage that way, and that's because Rampage came at him pretty respectfully and from a standpoint of trying to understand Bryce a little bit and just be nice about it. He's not his dad, he's not his parent, he's like a friend talking to a friend, giving advice. And again, Bear was coming at it from like an elite standpoint, which I didn't really like. The other thing I want to say is that I think I got the vibe. Tell me what you think about this. I got a little bit of a vibe that Bear has been talking shit about this Bryce Mitchell thing behind the scenes, I feel like. I think that was a part of this, in my opinion. Behind the scenes, when this whole thing happened, I think, because Bear, he's a pretty hyper guy. I think he might have been like pacing around his warehouse to some degree, being like, oh shit, like, Bryce should not be saying that shit. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, I don't know, Bear's a little spracked out on Adderall or something. If that's his God-gifted energy, good for him. But I just feel like he's always around, like, yelling about something. And I feel like when the Bryce situation happened, he was yelling about that. And I think to some degree, when everybody sees you doing that, you're going to do a podcast with this guy, you got to stand on that energy you've been putting out. Because Rampage has seen how you've been talking about Bryce to some degree. And I think that's why you got a weird podcast. Because I feel like Bear's been talking shit behind the scenes about Bryce. And so when he had him on his show, he's like, fuck, people know how I feel about Bryce. I can't really shoot him a fair take here. I got to, like, keep that same energy I've been having behind the scenes. Pure speculation, but I always speculate. I got speculation about the next topic too.
I thought too when he kind of asked him, he's like, "Well, hey, we're not going to talk about that here." Like, hey, he kind of like shut it down, but I was like, no one's really bring it up. Like, he asked a question, that was it.
Yeah.
Like, what that was my whole thing. Like, he made it go bigger than it was. Like, okay, like
he was so amped up about it.
I was like, all right, bro, like, fine, let's move on. Let's move on. Like, so I don't know. That was kind of funny to me, but I don't know how he is behind the scenes like that, so I can't speak on it either.